Hello humans! You're gonna notice a lot different about this video. For one, new intro. I was kind of sick of the old one, and honestly, I had that thought of, is this cultural appropriation? And if you have that thought, you should probably just stop what you're doing. So I did. Also, it's my face, and only my face, no video game. And if you didn't read the title, then you might not know that that is because I'm not playing a game. I'm going to talk about something that frankly annoys me, and this might become a series, haven't decided yet, but it's forensic myths. And the specific instance is on what circumstantial evidence is. People talk about how a case is all circumstantial and that means it's not viable, and I understand that that word has a connotation, like a new connotation, but in forensics, circumstantial probably doesn't mean what you think it means. So, let's start with some definitions. Direct evidence, which people think is very accurate. If they hear that someone has direct evidence towards something, then they're pretty convinced that it happened. But that is not necessarily the case. Direct evidence is video proof or an eyewitness, and that is all direct evidence is. Any other form of evidence, including DNA, hair, blood, anything else, is circumstantial evidence. And circumstantial evidence is often more reliable than direct evidence. Now, that might sound kind of crazy if you just, watch crime drama or just hear about cases and someone says, oh, that's all circumstantial. Good, because direct evidence is way more easily falsified. Specifically, eyewitness testimony. Videos are fairly reliable. They can be altered, but it's pretty difficult, and you really have to know what you're doing. But eyewitness testimony is super easy to fake, because people can just lie. And even if they're not lying, human memory is super unreliable. Do me a favor and find one of those videos online where it asks you to, count, how many times someone catches a ball or something. There's a specific one I'm thinking of that I saw in my forensics class in high school, where a bunch of people were passing basketballs back and forth, and you were supposed to count how many times the ball was passed. And while you were doing that, a guy in a gorilla suit walked through the middle, and more than half the class didn't notice the guy in the gorilla suit, because that's not what they were paying attention to. Now, you might think that someone who witnessed a murder would pay a lot of attention to the person who did it, but a lot of people are going to be distracted by the fact that there is someone now dead. And that's true of pretty much any crime. So, eyewitness testimony is unreliable because people miss things. And if your witnesses interact with anyone between the time that they witnessed it and the time they give their testimony, the odds of them having lost important information or having been accidentally swayed by that person increase a lot. Especially if your witnesses interact with each other, because they might start to point things out to each other and start to fabricate a joint story that might not necessarily reflect reality. So circumstantial evidence is really important because it can't lie. Sure, it can be faked, but not as easily. It takes real effort and people actually knowing what they're doing to fake circumstantial evidence. But to fake an eyewitness testimony, which is direct evidence, someone just has to, blink at an inopportune time, or just talk to people, or watch the news. If you watch the news even once and see the crime on the news before you give your testimony, you're probably not accurate anymore. So direct evidence is video or eyewitness testimony. Nothing else. Everything else is circumstantial. And while video is hard to replicate, it can be done, and even can be done by someone who's kind of an amateur. But eyewitness testimony is super easy to warp and make unreliable. On accident even, you don't even have to put any effort into that. Circumstantial evidence, on the other hand, requires actual knowledge of circumstances to fake. So if someone says it's circumstantial, meaning that they came up with this wild theory and twisted the facts to suit it, they don't mean circumstantial, they mean crazy. Or, at the very least, what's the word? Unsubstantiated. Circumstantial just means that they don't have a video or an eyewitness, which honestly is probably better. Alright, that's all I got. Bye-bye.